Last spring, I put together what I thought was a compost pile. Of course, compost is black gold to farmers and gardeners, providing nutrient-rich soil to fertilize your summer tomatoes, cucumbers, peas, peppers, and all the other good stuff. But when I went up to Moose Mountain Farms and I was chatting with Brother Ed Nason, I was proudly telling him about my compost pile when he quizzed me about it for a couple of minutes. And afterwards he said, "Pastor, I'm sorry to tell you, but what you got going on down there isn't a compost pile, but a rot pile." He said, you can pile in there all kinds of good stuff, but if you don't turn it over regularly, give it some air, you're not going to get the decomposition that you want to give you the good soil that you want. And he's right. The compost piles like these are filled with microbes who do their job working on all the eggshells and the orange rinds, the apple cores and coffee grounds and all the other stuff we dump in here. And they're living organisms. And just like any other living organism, it needs oxygen to breathe. And so if all you ever do is just pile it on, you don't turn it over and aerate it regularly, those microbes suffocate and die, and they don't do their job. You know, the same thing is true for believers. We can pile onto our hearts and minds all kinds of good stuff and great resources. We can listen to wonderful things, read good things, and subscribe to good things. But if we're not regularly having these things turned over in our hearts and minds, they just rot away, and they don't provide anything good or important for us in our lives. And so how do we do that? Well, it's really important that before you do any reading or listening or studying of any kind, that you pray and invite the Holy Spirit to come and to be that gardener, that tiller, to turn it all over for you. Or to get together regularly with other believers, in person or online or however. And in that group discussion, the same thing can be accomplished. It's very, very important that we do it. I love this story from the book of Acts, in which God uses Philip to share Jesus Christ with the Ethiopian eunuch. This is in Acts chapter 8, beginning in verse 27. It says, "He rose and went, and there was an Ethiopian, a eunuch, a court official of Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who was in charge of all her treasure. He had come to Jerusalem to worship, and was returning seated in his chariot, and he was reading the prophet Isaiah. And the Spirit said to Philip, 'Go over and join this chariot.' So Philip ran to him, and heard him reading Isaiah the prophet, and asked, 'Do you understand what you were reading?' And he said, 'How can I unless someone guides me?' And he invited Philip to come up and sit with him." What an important invitation he gave there when he invited Philip to come and talk. This man had come all the way from Ethiopia, made the big trip to Jerusalem, and he'd seen and heard all kinds of amazing things there, and he got for himself a copy of the Old Testament and the prophets. But none of it made a lick of sense to him. He couldn't understand it unless he had somebody to help turn all that good stuff over in his heart and mind. And if you know that story, Philip led this man to a saving faith in Jesus Christ, and he went home to Ethiopia, a believer, filled with the Holy Spirit, and started a church there. That's what we need too, believers. We need that same thing. We need to make that invitation, either to the Holy Spirit or to some other believer, to come and help us in understanding. The Dead Sea is a beautiful body of water at the lowest place on the face of the earth. It has only one source, the Jordan River that flows from the Galilee, and whatever rainwater filters down through the Judean mountains. But they call this sea a Dead Sea because absolutely nothing lives there. No fish, no plant life of any kind. Why is that? Well, while it has all this fresh water poured into it all the time, it has no outlet. And so as it bakes away under the hot Mediterranean sun in the Judean desert, all that fresh water vaporizes and evaporates, and all that's left is a lot of minerals. So while it's rich in minerals, it's lifeless. It's dead. That's not how we want to be believers. Full of minerals, full of rich stuff, but without any life. So I challenge you today, I charge you, that with all the good things that are being poured into our life right now, and all the wonderful things that God's giving us, let's take the opportunity today to have them turned over in our heart and mind. Let's reach out to the Holy Spirit. Let's invite others to come and join us in our conversation and in our study. And I assure you that it'll have the wonderful benefit in your life, and that your heart and mind will be a garden, well fertilized, producing a lot of wonderful fruit. So let's not rot away anymore, but let's grow, and let's see good things being planted in our hearts and minds for ourselves and for our families and for others. Love you. I'm with you in this effort, and I love you so much. We'll continue to pray for you. God bless you, and have a great night.